Hello, it's time for another guide video. Today I'm going to talk about economics, building up your industry, construction, and all that good stuff. This is the why people love this game. They love the economic management and the building system. I also do that. That's the best part of the game for sure. So it got even more exciting now with the new owner systems here. So I'm gonna explain those to you. I'm looking here at France at the start of the game. I'm looking at the paper mills in Paris, in Ile-de-France. And there are 8 paper mills. We can see here 4 are being owned by financial districts in Ile-de-France. They're privately owned. 4 of them is owned by the state. They're national owns. Why is it important if they're being privately or owned by the state? For one thing, I can get some kind of income from government buildings. It doesn't show here yet. Maybe if I let a week pass, it can show. So let's just get a week going here. And let's look here. Yes, here it is. We are making 1.67k from nationally owned buildings. Paper mills here is giving 745 this week. We also own arms industries and so on. We don't get total dividends. We get something that depends on the government dividends efficiency. And we are playing as France, and France starts with interventionism. So there is like always a 25% base value, and because we have interventionism, it gives 25% more. So we get 50. That's like the max we could do. If we were playing laissez-faire, I think this one would be less. So it's better for the state to own buildings under interventionism, but laissez-faire has other advantages. I think they have one more company, for example. So this is something to know. This is one reason why it's good to own building as the government. But one thing that is not obvious at all, it is that there has been this economics of scale, which is this throughput bonus here. It's because of the economy of scale, and because there is 8 buildings, it should actually be 8% throughput, but because, as we can read here, economy of scale bonuses are reduced by 25% due to nationally owned levels. And it could be up to 20% if we had 20 private ones. So this is something that it was something that Milton Friedman he talked about, that sometimes or quite often government-owned businesses are less efficient than the private ones because of reasons. They are like most economists think that, and this is represented in the scale with this one. So it would like for the economy, if we were to privatize these ones, like all here would be a bit more efficient because the throughput bonus would go up. So this is this is something that it's good to keep in mind here. So let's think about that for a minute. And if there is possible to subsidize them, but you should not subsidize buildings unless they're vital for some reasons. If we go here where you build the buildings, here is also a button. We could offer them for sale and try to sell the paper mills. I don't recommend that right now, but there are a lot of situations where it's correct to offer the buildings for sale. Like if we would offer the buildings for sale, people using this one, this is the private investment fund. Now they are working on privatizing tool workshops in Lorraine. So let's look at that and see what they're doing, so we understand how that works. Lorraine is here, and tool workshop is here. So when the game starts, it can be owned by the state, financial districts, or local workforce. These local workforce owned buildings, the financial districts will try to buy them up. So this is what it means. When it says privatizing, they are not buying. They don't necessarily have to buy a state building. They can also buy a building which is owned by the local workforce. And the advantage to have a financial district own it is because capitalists have more. They contribute more to the investment pool than if it's owned by the workforce, basically. So in what situations do you want to privatize buildings? And if, like now, we are making money, so it will make zero sense for us to privatize now. But if we would lose money, then there is a question: should we take a loan or should we privatize buildings to get money that way? And often, except for a few cases, it's better to privatize buildings than to take loan, because you will pay interest. The tech depends on the interest, but depends on the tax here in the society value. So, for example, we have invented banking. That means that it has 2% less loan interest rate. Let's see if I can. So we have a bonus or penalty to the loan interest rate. So let's see if we can see the tooltip here. And I think you can see the national modifier if you go here to the modifier screen, and we should have the loan interest rate. So you see that we are paying 16% loan interest rate, and that's a lot. That's really a lot. You start at a base of 20 minus 4, because I think we have 2 banking techs then. We must have 2 banking techs, but 16% for 1 year, it's still a lot. Like today, if you put money like into a bank account, maybe the bank will give you 1%. And if you borrow to buy an apartment or a house, maybe you have to pay like 5%. So this 16%, it's just extremely much. So I think when I watch Let's Play and so, people underestimate how much money you're wasting to the interest rate. So if we are going negative, and you can see here, because here if you look at the money, you can see the gold reserves. If we have 2.5 million gold reserves, if these go below 0, then we will start to take loan. And that loan, because of this 16% interest rate, if you are like a developing nation, it might be 20%. So it's just not worth it to take in loan. And often it's better to privatize buildings instead, to pay if you have to spend money, and if you're like below, so you have to borrow money. Often it's better to privatize buildings instead, because even if you privatize, then it will be the building will still be there, and these financial buildings, they will still contribute to the investment pool. So it's still useful to have lots of buildings, even if they're and some reasons like this I said about this one with the economies of scale advantage. That makes it sometimes often better to have it private. So, but there are a few cases where it's good to go into, and I will end the video with a case where it's good to go. Well, it's a strategy to go into debt, and usually you go into debt if you doesn't have a balanced budget. And one risk is if you build way too many construction sectors early. Many guides, they say build as much construction as you can, but that's not correct. The correct advice is build as many construction sectors as you can afford without going into debt. So I feel people often make it, the guides often tell you to build too much. And there is, of course, these production methods here for the construction sectors. So we are using iron frame buildings. So for every construction section, we need to increase the production of tools, fabric, wood, and iron. And it's often good to put the construction sectors because there is a penalty called MAPI if you have to transfer goods from one state to another. So it's often good to put the construction sectors where you can make both iron and wood. Just to take an example here, we have two production sectors in Rhone. In Rhone we can make iron mines, so it would be good to expand the iron mines here. That would be a good building to build because it would lower the price of the construction in that one. But in Ile-de-France, in the capital, we have 5 here, and the problem here is that we can't produce iron here. But we can produce lumber. So one possibility here that might be smart is actually to reduce the production method to only use wood and cloth. And because we can queue up lumber here, and the livestock ranches, because of the wool gathering, also give some fabric. So we can lower the price of the construction by expanding the logging camps here, and we already have some livestock ranches because we decreased the production method. And instead, it would be more useful to build in some other state that has iron. France has a lot of places that has iron. You can see all these places would be better places than Ile-de-France to put the construction sectors in, because you don't have to think about this MAPI penalty of because the local prices of the goods for construction will be lower there. So when you decide where to put your construction sectors, it's good to put where you have iron. Other things that you should think about is, I pressed this one and this one, expand the construction sectors. And one thing that's important to think about is these job seekers. You want to build up states where there are many job seekers. And if you hold over here, you see peasants that work in subsistence farms. They are looking for new jobs, and also the unemployed people. It would be best to put the unemployed people first. It's if there is not enough arable land for everyone to be peasants, then they are unemployed. So this would be a good place to build. And there is also a few more things that we need to look about. This green check mark means that there is qualifications to build, to fill all the vacancies. So it's better to build in places where the green check mark is. Qualifications, if there is a red check mark, there is a few things you can do. One is to put in this promote social mobility decree, which gives education access, and that helps to get qualifications. Another thing you can do is to lower production methods, because more advanced production methods require more advanced skills. For example, if we look here at handcraft furnitures, it needs less engineers and less machinists compared to if we use the lattice production method. So looking here and you can see that on many places, like see the green check mark. Often the colonies, like here we have some colonies in Kenya or whatever, they don't have this check mark. Another way, if you are lacking the green check mark, is to build an university. It will help it in the long run. And the third option is here, education institution. We could improve this one step to level 3, and then you need another tech to get it to level 5, because you need to change this law, which is a very important law, to go from child labor allowed to the compulsory primary school, which gives +2 max education investment. But you need a human rights technology to do that. And the third thing is that you only get institutions, of course, in places where you have which is incorporated. Let's say, for example, Corsica. These people, the Corsicans, is not discriminated in France because they are Europeans, basically. So this would be a good state to incorporate. Basically, you want to incorporate states where you where the people is not discriminated. So you don't want to incorporate places in Africa because so they should not be incorporated places where you don't accept the culture. So that's that. So one thing that where to expand is, we want iron, we want wood, we want to have job seekers, and we want to have this green check mark, so we have qualification. The other thing that we need is that we need infrastructure. Infrastructure is very expensive, and some countries doesn't even have access to the railroads technology, and the railroads technology it's a hard technology to make work. You need to produce engines to have some trains to run, and the engines needs steel, so you also have steel. And most countries at the start of the game, they don't have the railway technology, they don't have engines, and they don't have steel plants. Some, like Britain, has it, but most doesn't have it. The other way you can increase the infrastructure is to build ports. So for example, here, French Low Countries, it's here. We could build a port here, but it's not worth it to build a port to increase infrastructure when there is other places that's better to develop that already has free infrastructure. Because if we build a port, we have to pay salaries, we have to buy ships and parts to ships and so on, and all these things cost a lot of money. So it's not right to develop the French Low Countries. It's better to develop, for example, Brittany, which has a lot of infrastructure. The last thing we should look at before we decide what we should develop is that we go here to development and we look at this one, the expand government administration. Then we see the tax capacity, and basically if you're lacking tax capacity, then we will collect less tax in that state. So for example, we can see here in Languedoc there is minus 49 state capacity, so we would need I think everyone gives 15 now in this this technology we have, so we would need to build 4 of these before we get positive here. It would be good to build 4 of these, it would give us more money, but if we would start, for example, as Russia or China or whatever, like almost every state would be red like this. And sometimes it's just not worth it. It's worth it to improve the tax capacity by building government administration if you need a bureaucracy, if the bureaucracy can be used for some valuable reforms, for example, increase the education investment. But it wouldn't be worth it just to have 5,000 bureaucracy here, just a surplus. That would just be wasteful. So we shouldn't build here. We shouldn't build in Aquitaine either, because if we would build a few buildings here, then this one would be red also. So we were thinking, for example, Brittany. Here is enough tax capacity, so we could build a lot in Brittany, for example. So once we have unemployed, green check mark, we have infrastructure, we have taxation capacity, we need to look at one of these states. And one thing to look that is good for is that if you press this one, the production lens, you can see these modifiers. So in France, these places are good for agriculture, and some places are good for coal, like here in Alsace and Lorraine and in Rhône. So both of these places would be good to build up a construction industry, because when we go down here to the steel frames, then we need steel, and steel like needs coal, and tools, like the better tools, also need steel. So we will need it would be good to both have iron and coal stuff. And so Rhône would be good to start. Alsace would be good if they have like everything, Normandy, Brittany, all these places. And then there is like if there is like can be some places where there is some resources that is not available. For example, in France, Lorraine is the only place where we can build sulfur mines, and sulfur mines is very important to make fertilizer, and from fertilizer, which is used in the farms, you also make explosive from that, and you need the explosives to make ammunition. So it's just it's very useful to expand and build up a sulfur mine like in this place. So this would be a key state for us to develop also. But we can see here it only has 7. If you look at the left, we only have 7 infrastructure here. So we could build, every sulfur mine requires 2 infrastructures. We can only build 3 sulfur mines here. So it would not be a good state to start to build construction buildings and stuff like that. So once you have decided which place to build up first, you should use this edict called road maintenance. It gives 10% construction efficiency, and it gives up to 20 infrastructure. So if you decided what state you will develop first, this one is useful to put down. It would also be useful to put this one if you have a large, with Medisabia, this migration attraction would be nice. And if you like qualification, this one is good, promote social mobilities. And sometimes these are also very good. Like, you have to make a choice when you play this game. Should I use my authority on making taxes, or should I do this one? These ones, for example, one thing to see which state is most developed is that you could go here, go national GDP, and I see here Rouen is the most developed province and Ile-de-France is second. So it would be kind of good, like if I would put up these manufacturing decrees, maybe here in Rouen and maybe in Ile-de-France, and maybe I saw this was the only place for a sulfur mine. Let's put this one here, something like that. The alternative would be to add consumption taxes. Here the consumption taxes are good to make extra money. You could also reduce here with the military, and you could also reduce here with government wages. You have to be a bit careful for these ones, and the reason for that is if you're in a power block and the power block, like, it's not secure. Like, if we would form a power block now, we would be number 2nd after Britain. But maybe if I do this one, it's minus 20 prestige, it's minus 20 prestige, minus 40 prestige. Maybe we would don't have enough prestige, so maybe we will get down to 4th place. And if you are at 4th place or at 6th place, then these ones, this principle gets away. Because only the most powerful blocks can have all 4. Some can have only 3, and the worst ones can have only 2 here. So you have to be a little bit, but it's always good to make money. You want money and play efficient. So what are you using money for? It's this one here. It's good to have this one here at the medium, usually, unless you're playing a very poor country. Then it might make some sense to raise the taxes all the way, so you can do some building at all. It's not needed for France, which already is a fairly good nation economically, because if you change this one, you get more radicals and less loyalists, and if you go this way, you get more more loyalists and less radicals. And it also affects the legitimacy, which can be important here. We are 68, but you could see if we would go up here, we would get 25% loyalist of living increases. So it would be like, let me show you that. 10 more. Now we are here. That would be a boost if we are trying to get more loyalists for some reason. But usually it's good to have it here in the middle, I think. And if you need to raise more taxes, maybe the consumption taxes is better. And then which one here you should choose? You should like make the calculation, like how much does everyone make? For example, services, for each of these I get maybe 7.5 from each of these. That's more than luxury clothes and furniture. So that would be a good one to take, because it just gives a lot of money per authority. But if you're like a small developing nation, then you almost wouldn't get anything here. So maybe it would be more useful to make this decrease then. And if you're losing a lot of money, as I said before, privatizing buildings is often better than going into loan. Usually that's preferable, because loans are very expensive in this game. And also, what consumption taxes? It's common that people look here at population and look at the needs, like and try to do like tax the rich people a bit more. So rich people, we could tax transportation, services, which is not needed so much here, at least not it's not needed by the poorest people, at least. Something like wine, everyone loves that. So luxury furniture and clothes is also good to tax here, for example. So like how many of these should you build? You should build so many you can afford without going into debt. And if you want to save money, first thing you should do, if you can, is probably lowering these ones. And don't forget to raise up here if you get into a war. Of course, you need to raise the military wages. And if you might lose your rank, then you can't lower these ones. And also, if the interest groups get -10, so they get radicalized, then it's not worth it, of course, either. And sometimes if this puts you above or below, like if this puts you above or below these kind of cards that you get from the interest groups, then this is something that you can micromanage also. And here at the bottom you can see this one. They think we should build government administration here in Languedoc, and that's a good start for France also to build that one here. So so that's basically the and if you're like a very poor country with no real like possibility to get loyalists, then just max as much as you can, lower everything, and just try to build up your economy. Like if you don't have an economy, it's like no use to taxing it, and try just to build it up as much as you can instead. So that's this one. So a good start here, for example, could be to change this one. Maybe build some of these. Maybe we were thinking Brittany, you could build, let's go for a few here, and to pay for this maybe one lodging camp, and no, it wasn't. Britain is not a good place because we can't build iron. Maybe Normandy is better, there we can build iron. Let's go for 3 here, and a couple of these to pay. This will like pay for that one, and maybe also a tool workshop if I don't have one here. And also put this. Another trick you can do here with the authority is that you could increase this one as much as possible and put it here, because we're developing Normandy first. Then it's good to do that one. And now you see that it's positive, and now I can reduce it, and this one still stays here. Okay, so this is shortly about how to balance the economy. And as I said before, loans is very expensive in this game. People think, as long as I don't go bankrupt, it's fine. But that's actually not the best strategy. You don't want to go into debt in this game. You're just losing so much money in it, but you don't notice it because you don't get these big pop-ups like you get in EU4. But there is one case where it could be a valid strategy to go into debt, and that is if you're not part of a power block. It's very important that you haven't created your power block, you're not a part of a power block. And the reason for that is it's this diplomatic action here called take on debt, and we could take on the Hanesian debt and in exchange for an obligation. Haiti doesn't want that now, which is strange because probably money is more important than an obligation usually. So what happened, as you can see if you watch my playthrough when I played Japan, I played very I went into debt. I built too much construction, I built too much stuff, and I went into debt. I went into debt a lot. I was like maybe 20 million in debt. But I had improved with all the majors here, so I think Russia guaranteed me, and I had a trade agreement with Britain and so on. So I was the major powers, they liked me, and I think they competed to get Japan into their power block, but it was like a fight. Maybe Russia, Britain, France, all of them maybe improved with me, and so on. And what happened when I got into this huge step, I was almost bankrupt, so I had to stop the construction. Like it was that bad. Which is then when I had 20 million in debt, Britain said to me, this is just how the AI is programmed. It's not a good strategy at all. They say, we pay you 20 million pound in exchange for an obligation. So they used this action on me, take on debt on me. And for all my monies, for all my debt, which was like 20 million pound at that time, they just get an obligation for it. And an obligation is nothing. Like often the only thing you can get for an obligation is 30 points of a relation boost. And that would also be good for me because I wanted to be friends with Britain. So like it was just like win-win because I wanted to be friends with Britain. And then I just tried like if I do it again, does it happen again? So maybe I went down to 40 million because my economy had grown so much, so I could take another 20 million of debt. And then when it was down to 40 million, again, Britain said, we want to take on your debt for 40 million. So that's like if you're playing as a country that is not part of a power block, and at that time I was not a recognized country yet, so I couldn't even form a power block, then one strategy is to get a lot of debt and hope that a major power will take on your debt. Paradox will probably fix this sometimes because it's just like an programming oversight, but at least now in patch 1.7.5 it's a possible strategy. You can watch my Japan game and see how I do it there when I get to the number 2 great power by just building up Japan with the help of British money, of course. So, and one more thing that you should so that's basically that's like the trump card that you have that you can play for. But if, yeah, of course, like if they don't pay your debt, take on your debt, you're in big trouble. Then you would have been it would have been much better to you to just play more carefully and not go into debt. So I'm not recommending that strategy, but it's a valid strategy, I think. I think if you're not part of a power block yet. So and another thing here, you should look here at the sheet here, sheet. It says there is some things here that can get extremely expensive, and one of those is this one, the construction goods. So you want these goods to be cheap on your market. So for every construction you build, you should ideally build one iron mine, one fabric, one tools, and one wood. Like so you expand the construction goods along with the expansion of construction works. Something that also can cost a lot, it's these military wages. A lot of nations like Russia, Japan, like most nations, start with an extremely large military compared to their economy. Here in France, for example, we are spending, if you add goods and wages, military goods and wages, we spend like, and I think I also took it down, let's just put it to the normal way. You can see here we spend like 85,000 on military each week, and our revenue, it's only 200,000. So that means like maybe, I don't know, 40% or something goes to the military. Like that's completely unsustainable. But most countries start with such a large military compared to the economy. Today, NATO countries, for example, spend 2% of their GDP or 3% or something like that. So 40% on the defense, it's just way too much. So so what you can do here then is that you can look at if a lot of countries have like this upgrade army where you can upgrade from like basic infantry to this artillery, and then they require more consumption of goods. So these kind of goods that the military needs always, ammunition and small arms, and artillery, and this one needs small arms, grains and iron. You kind of want those to be kind of cheap in your market to pay less for the military goods. And same here for ships. So build your own industry, defense and industry. Yeah. So that's basically my tips. And don't be afraid also to like it's cheaper often to be friends with a major. Maybe you can get a defensive pact with Britain or something like that, and then you're quite safe. You could even delete units and build up your economy that way by saving some money on the military. Okay, so that's my economics overview of what I think is the most important things to think about in Victoria. So see you. Oh, maybe one more thing. Maybe here, look at the market also. Here, it's often profitable here to sort by market price. The expensive ones you can often import, like iron is expensive. New import. Yeah, look here. I can import and get very good deals here. So all these productive stuff you want to import, and then the for example here, luxury furniture and clothes is they're very cheap. So there's two things you can do. You can try to export, so that would be good here. The other thing would be to go to a place like this and maybe change change one of these, like in Provence, to do non-luxury, and then you can see if it's good or bad. Apparently it's not good right now. I'm looking here at the predicted productivity from that by producing more regular clothes. So that's something that you should do at once. You do have to be careful though, because you see here I lost bureaucracy, and that gives me a government dividend waste and a tax waste on 3%. So it's often not worth it to go below. But if you have spare bureaucracy, spare convoys, that's definitely worth it. And like regularly, you should also go here to the trade routes, sort by revenue, and apparently this one is not profitable, so it could be good to cancel that one maybe, and then we get this one. So but we can import it from the British and the Belgians instead, where it's just a more profitable way. Another thing, I can just take it also now when I'm just talking about business, is these ones production. Look over these at often, see if it's possible to change something or so. It's often it's a lot of micromanagement, but it's often worth it. For example, here soil enriching, it's not worth it because fertilizer will be too expensive, but maybe I can do it like in one province or so. So all this micromanagement is it's also quite useful, but it takes a little bit of a time. So yeah, so okay, see you in the next guide here.